Hey,
We're
how are you?
live.
So,
Hey, chatters.
for those that are going to catch the replay, this is TJ. TJ
Yes.
Moonan. TJ Moonan is a family reunification. Wow, we got 15 already.
Cool.
TJ is a family reunification activist. Is that fair to say?
That's accurate. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And of course, like always, we have the beautiful Aussie. Tonight, I thought that it might be important for us to start discussing, what family reunification may mean in the case that's specific to us. Now, I will tell you that we have that Mr. Moonan has not been told what case we're working on. Correct, sir?
No, I haven't. I didn't know there was a case involved. No.
Yes. So, no, this isn't a sneak attack or anything. What we want is just the facts. But there's actually a case that we're working in, and I wanted to let you be unbiased and not, have a chance to look up a bunch of stuff about this case
Okay.
for a reason. So we have a young girl who's been abducted in Tennessee, and
Okay.
and her brother. She has three brothers, and these three brothers, they've been taken by the Tennessee Department of Family Services or whatever they
Yeah.
call it. So I
Right.
thought that it might be very pertinent to bring on someone of your stature and your experience to talk about what are the dynamics of family reunification and family law in general as you interpret it, sir.
Well, in that case, I would have to know what the circumstances were that brought the DCF in to take the child in the first place. Was there an issue with the parenting that was happening or wasn't happening? I have no idea what's going on with any of it. So I really need some more background info
Okay.
on it.
Well,
I
just
can probably
Please
weigh
fill
in there just to fill you in.
Mhm.
We've been through this before in another case with two little missing boys in California. Obviously, it's slightly different laws in California, but essentially the CPS had come out and said, we're taking the boys not because the parents were um, neglectful or anything, but because that's just standard when children go missing until they actually work out what the circumstances actually are and whether the police are making moves against them or whatever. They take that's just standard practice. They take the other children. They work out exactly what's going on with the missing kids. So that's what we think is the overall sort of picture with the three boys being taken from the Wells
Okay.
family.
Now, with this girl in Tennessee, does the parent have representation, an attorney?
good question.
I'm not
Well,
sure yet.
there's
Okay.
been some
Right.
talk-
Well. First of all, if she has an attorney, automatically she's in trouble because that's just going to prolong the case. But regardless, what needs to happen is she needs to go to the courthouse, file the paperwork to get immediate visitation with the child, and then take it from there as far as reunification, and work through the system that way. And unfortunately, it's good to have representation, I guess, because you can get your voice heard more in court. But what's going to happen is they're going to continue to prolong the case, and the longer that the child's away from the parent, the harder the reunification is. So it's really a difficult situation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, TJ,
Go on, Ben.
in regards to some of the dynamics of children that find themselves in services, what are some of the expectations that the family finds themselves under in regards to requests from Department of Family Services?
I think it's important to work with them as much as they can. You try to be, the most important thing is just to maintain your composure, because it's really easy because they're going to tell you stuff you don't want to hear. And you're going to find out that there's things that it's just irritate the heck out of you, and you're not going to know what to do. And that's where, an advocate such as myself, and there are many, believe me, I'm one of many, who can help with that situation. There's I belong to a couple of groups that, we have different individuals who have been through different aspects of family law that help with different situations.
What, this is actually a good segue, Mr. Can you tell me why you're so passionate about family law and the dynamics of family law, if you feel comfortable talking about it?
Not a problem. I mean, have you got about 5 hours? I can tell you the story. The bottom line is I have a 30-year-old daughter. I've seen a total of 70 minutes in the last 23 years. When her mother and I separated, she was a month old, and when we went into court, I had just gotten out of the hospital because I was just emotionally screwed up, and so from the time she was born until my visits were stopped, my visits were supervised. But somehow, what happened is an allegation was made that I molested her. How I could have molested her is not possible. But anyways, once that allegation was made, investigations happened in my case that took 5 years. And during those 5 years, my ex-wife coached my daughter to believe that, I had molested her. And when I finally got another visit, after years of fighting with the family courts to get that visit, by then it was too late. She had been so brainwashed, and so at that point, my life was pretty much over because I had lost my daughter, and unfortunately, at the same time, I lost my mother. So it was a really bad time in my life, and I decided that the heck with it, I'm going to try to help other people who are going through it, so they don't have to experience what I did, And that was about 20 years ago.
You're not done fighting, right?
I won't be done fighting until there's no more family law.
There you go.
That's when it's over.
That's a beautiful thing.
So the situation that you're describing is parental alienation, isn't it?
Completely. It's textbook. I started working with Dr. Childress back in the 90s with that. And I've gone off in 100 different directions, and there's just so much information available, but still it's not recognized by most courts in the land.
You had a pretty good opinion of family court in the backstage prior to this segment. And you said in your opinion that family law was basically an entity to create and stipend revenue.
What happened was after the free love movement of the 60s and basically feminism in the 70s, divorce became very prevalent. And at that time, laws were put into place, like in the Social Security Act, they have Title IV, Parts D and E, which every time there's a divorce, the courts make money, CPS and DCF and all them, they make money. So it became a money-making situation. So now the courts aren't interested in family reunification. They're interested in making money.
I can cheer on that. I can chuck a figure on that, TJ. It's a $40 billion business, America, family law courts.
Yes.
There are over 500,000 children in foster care, in state care in this country, and they're worried about a few thousand down at the border. It makes no sense whatsoever, really.
Yeah, I mean, when you know that there are just systemic issues with the DCF, just nationwide, every state has had some sort of pollution in that portion of their government, and it's actually been systemic from the birth because Aussie, she's given me some history, and we're in regards to what was it, the orphan train, Aussie?
Yeah, yeah.
The
I've
book.
The
heard of
what? I didn't hear you.
Well, there was a book written, and it was about essentially that a lot of the family law was written on children that were like, it's called the orphan train, right? Where the train would go through. It's been so long since I know the specifics, but essentially what it was it was a handbook into the birth of the Child Protective Services. And it
The
is
Underground Railway.
the Underground Railroad. There you go.
Oh, right.
If you do know about that, then you're aware. The Underground Railroad it's essentially the blueprint for how DCFS started. And it was essentially a system that would strip a child from his individuality or her individuality. They lost, many civil human rights going into this, and this was the birth of this system. And essentially, it hasn't changed a whole lot over its inception.
It has changed, but it's changed for the worse because
Correct.
it's creating more
Like,
trafficking. You hear about children getting killed or committing suicide in DCF homes. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Now-
And the government is what's behind it.
TJ, can you put a rumor for us before we go on? Because people are already writing it in the chat. The paperwork for these CPS things, this is sealed paperwork, right? This is not released to the public. This is protected, sealed paperwork. Nobody gets information about your case. It doesn't get leaked into the media. People have nothing to do with the case. Don't get copies of the paperwork. That's absolute garbage, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, and it's a one-sided game. They make the rules, and if the rules don't work, they change the rules to make it work. And it's all making money. That's what it's all about.
But it definitely, in regards to the security and the vacuum and the compartmentalization of these cases, there are no public releases of information about this, and it would be safe to assume that no civic officer, whether it be DCFS or an investigator from the law enforcement side, they have no interest in leaking information that would potentially cost them their career in order to be relevant on social media, I guess you might say.
Right, or just to be the hero,
Right, it doesn't work that way.
No. I mean, it's frowned against, and like you said, you'll get arrested if you try to expose it. The only time you're going to see anything about DCF or CPS or any of them is when a child dies in the home, and unfortunately, that's or when they're trying to get more money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sad.
So, in regards to when children, and I want to give everyone kind of a focus and a scope of what services are available to the children while they're in services. What would that range from?
Oh God, anywhere from daycare to depending on the age of the children,
Therapist.
job searches, definitely therapy, and it's really. I mean, if you look at the big picture, it's a scary situation because these kids go into these programs, then they get into the therapy, like you said. In the therapy, they're prescribed medication, and they're zombies the rest of their life. And you see the millennials now, and it's just really sad what's going on with our youth, and the future of this country is in real tough shape right now. I feel awful about it.
There's a question from the audience, TJ. Someone wants to know, can the public attend a family court hearing over CPS taking a child from a family member?
Yes, and I think it's really important to point out to people that when you go to court, you can actually videotape the proceedings. You have to let the court know, ahead of time, but you can record the proceedings. And usually what will happen is at some point the judge will ask a question that the video can't record, and then it'll stop. But you can at least get started videotaping the proceedings when you go into court. And that's almost in every state. As far as I know, that's every state in the country. So,
well, let me just qualify that for any of our Aussie listeners. You can't do that in Australia.
yeah, well, here in the States, you know, a lot of people don't know that, and it would help them so much if they had that, you know, going forward in their case. So I think it's important for everyone to know that,
right.
You know.
I think it's a good way to go, to be able to have a public sort of trial, so to speak, because it is in the interest of the public. What the government decides to do with our children is in the interest of the public. So I agree with you about that. But in Australia right now, no, we don't. We have completely sealed records. You cannot talk about anything to do with your kids. You can't record your judicial proceedings and so on. You can't even take a phone into a switched on phone in the courtroom in Australia. So, but it is a better way to go about it. You're right.
During this COVID thing, did you have video court hearings and stuff? Where you couldn't go to court? Where you couldn't go to court, didn't you have like Zoom meetings or video meetings for court for hearings?
We're actually going through our 200th day of lockdown in Australia, like in Melbourne. But pretty much a lot of stuff is being done by Zoom meetings. Yes.
Yeah, so you can record those, you know, yourself. There are programs to do that.
Portal, correct?
I'm sorry?
If you have the link to the portal.
I will find it, and I will definitely get it to you, for sure.
Please do, sir.
Yeah.
Well, you just record it while in your screen. You just do a screen grab while you're in court session, Benny.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, you can do that, and they have them so that you can put them in specific folders and so forth. So yeah, but that would be the best thing for you to do, because then you have a video recording of what actually happened and what was said. You know. So
are you saying that the family court in Tennessee will let public come in and attend the parents trying to get their kids back hearings?
Absolutely. There's no reason they wouldn't be, unless they were disruptive in any way. You know.
Correct. Disruptive.
And like I said, they can video record it too. Just let the court know ahead of time, at least a day ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that that's a good thing in this case. Like, I can see how it's a good thing in the sense of, like, you know, the public interest in understanding how the family court system works. But in this particular case, there's already rumors going around that there's some kind of abuse on paperwork with the Wells family, and that's why the boys were taken. And I don't believe that anybody would have seen that paperwork. So if we let the public go into the courtroom and the judge says, well, we've already got a history of abuse, that's just going to spread like wildfire, and that's going to damn this family even harder.
Right. Well, is there a history of abuse?
Not that we know of. There's rumors at the moment. There's rumors.
Well,
there's no specific. There's people saying, ooh, their house is grubby and it's messy and it's unsafe and they must be on drugs because they look like this and they talk like that. There's a lot of rumors. There's no specific.
Right. I think it would really come down to seeing the paperwork. I mean, what does the court know? You know, and go from there. You know. If you know what the court knows, and they have some kind of abuse evidence, you know, that's one thing. But if they don't have anything, then they nobody has a leg to stand on. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. I do, and that's why I'm saying if someone goes into that court proceeding and listens in and hears something like that, then this is going to be very damaging for the family who's still trying to find their missing child. They don't need, but the problem that we've got with this particular case is that the focus has been taken away from finding the child, that looking in the community for the child's face. The focus is being put on the parents must have murdered the little girl or something along those lines. So that's the issue that we've got in this particular case. So,
well, that needs to be amended immediately. I mean, the most important piece is finding the child, dead or alive, right? I mean, that's the
exactly.
most important. And that's
Exactly.
that blows my mind. They shouldn't. I can't believe they would go there. And it's all about just prolonging the case. You know, it's just going to make them more money. The longer the case goes on, the more money they're going to make. You know, and the best interest of the child or the family really doesn't matter to the courts. Really doesn't. It's all just legal procedure to them.
And as far as publicity is concerned, in respects to children's cases, do you have an opinion on how publicity is kind of a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, if it were used properly, it would be a great thing. I don't see it that way. When I see stories about children suffering, they're homeless children, you know, living on the streets. They're not the kids in CPS and DCYF homes and you know, that are struggling just to figure out what the heck happened to their life. You know, these poor kids were taken from their homes and regardless of what had been taken from their primary caretakers. And they don't know what the heck's going on. And they're just as bad off as any homeless child. You know, I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. You know, any child that doesn't have a foundation in life doesn't have a place to grow. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's also another sort of stigma, I think, that we can consider being attached to those boys, and that is that you know, the mum said watch Summer and walked out, and they didn't watch her and she disappeared. So they've already got like a guilt complex, but that they were told, you know, watch Summer. But there's also going to be that, like, this social backlash where it's taken out of context. You know, these kids really aren't old enough to be held responsible for not watching Summer the way they were. So I think that there's a two-edged sword there that's going to come back on these poor kids.
Absolutely.
Well, the issue that what I'm hearing you say is that everyone's placing blame. You know, and there's not really I'm not hearing anything about a search for the child. You hear what I'm saying?
Right.
You know,
absolutely. That's exactly what we've been saying.
And that's family court in a nutshell. You know, they're looking for someone to blame instead of, you know, solving the issue. You know, it's really ridiculous. You know, they focus on the problem instead of the solution.
Absolutely. They don't stay solution-based. Let me ask you, we talk backstage, so this is kind of a preloaded rhetorical question for Aussie and I, but we asked you backstage pre-segment if you had ever been involved in a case that involved an abduction.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I was thinking about that over the last hour or so. I'm actually working with a man now who about 5 years ago, he had
now these are family abductions, correct?
Yes. His the woman. I'm sorry.
I was just correcting Benny. Familial.
Familial, yes.
Familial.
Correct. Yeah, familial.
Okay. Familial. Okay. All right. He had a relationship with this woman 5 years ago, and she had been seeing this other man, and during the brief relationship she got pregnant, and then she broke up with the man and got back with the other guy, and they're raising the child. And the man came to me, the father of the child, and asked for help to get her back. And right now, we're literally just starting it, but he's in one state, she's in another, and it's going to be a long process. But he is the father. There's his name's on the birth certificate, so he has the right to be with the child. He just needs to. We just got to get the logistics all straightened out and get everything figured out that way. But he had nowhere to go. He didn't know what to do, and I just happened to see him on one of the social media pages, and started talking to him, and there is a solution, and it's the same thing. You work with these guys, and they're so focused on what she did to them or what he did to her, and
it's like they're trying to punish their partner instead of get the best interest of the child into play here.
The child, right? It's about the child.
Correct.
So,
well, it's using their kids as weapons to smack each other over the head.
That's the thing, and the poor kids get stuck in the middle, and and it's just downhill from there. Really is a sad situation. Sad.
So you've been doing this, pardon me, roughly 30 years, roughly, right?
I started about 30 years ago with my case, and it's been about 20 years I've been working exclusively with others.
So if I want to ask you a series of questions, but the first being, how many cases approximately do you think you've worked on?
I would have to guess it's anywhere between 50 and 75.
Okay, and we're talking about cases from day dot till the conclusion that take sometimes years, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I there's one woman who we worked together for probably about 4 years before she got her son back, and she's a very good friend of mine. Yeah.
I want to ask you another question in regards to unification, and this is more on a personal level for you, because I want to know, because I'm curious in that way. But when you first helped your first family with the very first unification, what was that feeling like?
It was, to be honest with you, it was kind of bittersweet because it was in the beginning, and I was so happy to see this, and she would do live videos with her daughter, and I'd watch the two of them, and I would want so much for it to be me and my daughter, and it couldn't be. So that was tough. That was a hurdle I had to get over a number of times, but and now it's I long to see the pictures and the videos of the kids and the parents back together. It's really what I live for at this point.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I have another question. Do you pre-screen? So I ask you this. Let me preface saying that there have been things on the internet that people have asked me to cover, and I just can't. It's not that I won't. It's just that I can't. Rather, that content to be too close or just of a nature that I can't be involved in. So I do, in a sense, I pre-screen a lot of the situations that I get involved in, and I used to have a very good track record of pre-screening these situations through Aussie, because Aussie is connected to some of us. So I always made sure that it was in alliance with what I could, in alignment with what I could have resources on. And I found that there was a very good reason why I ought to adhere to what OSINT, which is open source intelligence. If they told me that I ought not be involved in a case, then there was always a reason why I shouldn't be. And I've come to find that ultimately the reason why that I have been kind of warded against them is because ultimately what happens is it's a case that I get to the end and I get my heart broken, right? And so I say all that to say, do you screen these cases to protect yourself from kind of the things that might still be, ungrieved.
Yeah. Yeah. When you first go into family court and your adversary makes an allegation against you, it's automatically believed by the court that the allegation is true, whether it is or not.
Facts.
And you're guilty until proven innocent. Well, when someone comes to me and tells me that they've been accused of whatever, I assume that it's a false accusation, just because that's what happened to me, and I will go with that until I know that it's different. And I try to stay an arm's length away and just go through the process of the paperwork and so forth, without getting emotionally involved in the case. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I try to callous myself in that way, TJ, and Aussie has been really trying to enrich, that character in me. But it has been so hard because it's just like the other night, like I just couldn't, I couldn't even, like I was listening to a gentleman and I was on a live with him, and it was the father of the young gal that's missing here. And it was just like I just kind of lost my emotions for a minute, because it was like it was one of the few times in life where I actually was in the presence of someone else and could feel like their pain. You know what I mean? And it was like at that moment, it seemed in the moment that it was like very heavy lifting. You know what I mean? It was very hard work to be in that space and to remain, I don't know, like now, because of how I see the culture in America treat victims, before, essentially we live in a victim blaming culture where if you had any sort of past, and for instance, a child go missing, online is going to tear you up and pretty much say that they're going to focus on the family who is still out of jail, more than they would who could be a potential suspect outside of that.
Right.
And for me, whatever reason, TJ, it triggers something in me when I see people do that to victims. If they're on this side of the bars with me and I see people attacking them, it does trigger something in me that makes me want to stand up for that person in any sort of way. Like I end up breaking my own, and this is bad because in my compassion for victims, I break my own oath sometimes of being on the edge of not victimizing someone else. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And at the same time, being victimized yourself, being taken advantage of. And it has happened, and it's been a long time because I've been able to sort out a little bit more each time. But yeah, it does happen. It can be detrimental to just your own, your own self value, really. So,
in regards to the social media, go ahead, Aussie.
I also think that the victimization that is going on in this particular case is playing a role in the family court stepping in. So something that's been raised, which I had forgotten about, was that there's actually a gag order. No one's allowed to talk about the other boys. And this is because I think it's because it's such a high profile case. It went high profile like nearly overnight. But there's also this situation where people are sneaking around their property through the day and through the night, trying to get screen grabs and produce content for YouTube, and the parents can't go to the store without being mobbed by the lynch mob and being accused of being murderers. And there's no evidence any of this is even true. There's just a missing child at this stage. And so I think that the victimizing the parents is also victimizing the children, because it means CPS has to step in for their safety.
Yeah, unfortunately, if that's true, that's a tough one. I mean, do they have any knowledge of where the child might be?
None.
I mean,
No one knows anything.
and
The police have not released. The police don't believe that it's the parent. At this stage, they've been cooperating 100%. They're helping. They've handed over all their devices and data and everything to be searched, and they've been interviewed. I believe there's a difference between interview and interrogation. If you to an interrogation, then they're starting to look at you. Well, they've just been interviewed stage, so they're still cooperating with the police. They're still in contact with the police every day, finding out if there's anything new. So yeah, at this stage, like, I don't believe there's any reason to be victimizing the family. That they're already victims, you know what I mean? So,
but like I said, it goes back to them blaming. Somebody's got to be blamed, and that just takes away from the. It just takes away from the search for the poor child. I can't believe anyone's looking at anything other than this, where this child is. It blows my mind.
Right.
Is this the one in California or Tennessee?
Well, this case
is the one
Tennessee.
from Tennessee we're referring to, yeah.
Tennessee, yeah. Okay.
But it was the same thing happened with the case in California that we raised just before, the two missing boys in California. The same thing happened. YouTube got a hold of it. It went skyrocketing into massive, huge audiences, and everyone was arguing over everything. Their kids got taken within the first week of the two boys going missing. So that was a slightly different case, because the two boys who went missing, we think that might be a familial abduction because they were adopted, and the a natural family were not happy about the adoption. So that one's sort of like a little bit more convoluted. And so there's actually somewhere to point with that one, if that makes sense. Whereas, and they have natural children, two of their own natural born children as well. So CPS stepped in and took the natural children, and then they had to go to court. And obviously the police provided information to the court whether or not they think these parents are being investigated. We didn't get any information on that, but we were able to see the court cases being lodged through the internet, like the public records, just the cases themselves being booked into the court.
And the dates. And
so
stuff.
We know that So we know that on such and such a day, the West family got their appointments in the court to get their own kids back, and we've not seen anything since. So we assume that they did get their own kids back. But the reason we won't raise it and start talking about it is because we don't want to put the focus back on the Wests again.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So, in the one in Tennessee, there's no one who would have abducted the child.
We got
in the case in Tennessee, that was she's her natural that's her natural family. So there's no controversy over custody of the child or anything like that. There is a step family who have come forward and said that maybe the father was abusive to one of them or some of them when they were younger, and this has raised a lot of doubt over whether he did something to the child. So that's become a bit of an issue. But it's as a lot of cases that you cover, it's very difficult when those kind of allegations are made as to how true they are, and whether they're not just being vengeful because of some other situation and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's been. Go on.
Excuse me. That bothers me because, I mean, all the allegation is a distraction. Find the child. I mean, why is anybody looking at anything else other than that right now? Find the child, dead or alive. Right. My God, it just blows my mind, And it's family court. Too. It's family court, though. That's what they do. It's more about the money than it is about the family. Oh, it's aggravating. Really now, is. I want to go down to Tennessee now and look for the kid. Jeez.
Let me ask you kind of a personal question, I guess, and if you don't want to talk about it, I understand. But roughly, Mr. Moonan, how many counties have you done this work in throughout?
Counties?
Yes,
Good
like
God.
how many different counties? Accumulatively.
Gee. I mean, you're talking about 50 states. I don't know. I would say, uh, as far as counties, you talk at least 50 different counties.
Okay.
You know?
So
I mean,
within those 50 counties, did you personally witness anything that you thought would be a malfeasance of duty or some sort of inner court misconduct throughout any of the 50?
pretty much all of them, every single one of them. Yeah. I mean, there's no due process. So there's no right or wrong for family court. And what looks right to one parent is wrong to the other parent. And there's no way that you're going to get any kind of separation with that. I mean, that's always the way it's going to be. It's always going to be him against her, and that's the way it is. So
Yeah. Well, I'll just come right out and let you know that there was actually a warrant for my arrest at one stage. Like, my kids are growing up now, so I can talk about it. But there was a point where my daughter had disclosed something to me. Like, I had been dragged through the family courts for many, many, many years, and there was one point, a particularly low moment that I had, where I let both my kids go with their dad, and that went against me later on in any other court cases, because I had voluntarily relinquished custody. And but we have better sort of protection for contact for contact with your children. So I was still getting the contact, but there was a point where my daughter had disclosed something to me, and I didn't know what to do. I was at a loss. I was like, "Holy Hannah, this can't be happening." And it involved someone that we actually truly trusted. So it was a real slap in the face. And I rang up my solicitor, my lawyer, and I asked him, like, what the heck do I do? Who do I report this to? What do I do? I need some instruction. And because I had, a state provided lawyer, because I was, on the bone of my ass, and he was working at the coal mines. He had a lot of money. He had basically, what's the word? He had conflicted me out of getting a lawyer, if that makes sense, like contacting every lawyer in town so that I couldn't get one myself. So he'd basically conflicted me out of getting my own lawyer. So I ended up with a state lawyer, and he said to me, grab the kids, get them away, go to your parents, put them in school, show that you're trying to provide for them, like a balanced environment for them, blah, blah, blah. Get all that sorted out, and then go to court and fight it in court. So I took his advice, and I grabbed the kids and I went to my father's place, and I didn't realize, but it's across the border. So when you've got court orders in place and you cross a state border, you're now, breaking the law, basically. And so he took it to court, and they issued a warrant for my arrest. And so for about 2 weeks, I was a fugitive from the law. And they were my kids. Like, how stupid does it get? They're like my kids. That was just crazy.
That's the politics, though. That's the politics.
That's right.
Yep.
So I ended up going straight back home. Like, I avoided the police and went inland, so I didn't have to get arrested. So I avoided the police and got back up to the hometown. And when it came time for court, the judge ruled against me. He just said, "Oh, you made all this stuff up. You put it in her head. You're just trying to alienate the kid from her father, blah blah." And the guy that was grooming my daughter got away with it. That was the ruling. The mother's just making it all up. And she was forced to live for another few years. So in Australia, when your children turn 13, they get their own court-appointed lawyer. So at that point, their father realised that he was never going to be able to fight their own lawyers. So he let them come stay with me voluntarily. And they stayed with me ever since. And today, my daughter, she's not alienated from him, but she always felt that he let her down because he didn't believe her. In fact, it went one step further. She felt I let her down. I was the one doing all the fighting, but in the early days, she felt I let her down, that I didn't believe her because I did what the authorities told me to do. Everything the authorities said, I followed it to the letter. They said, don't talk to her about any of this because it's all got to go through court and stuff. So don't talk to her. Don't mention it to her. Don't bring it up with her. I did all of that. I took her to all of the appointments where the police wanted to interrogate her. Can you believe that? Interrogating a 9-year-old child. And I did everything by the book, everything they told me.
They use the word interview now.
Yeah, right.
That's right. So they put my kid through like hell, and I couldn't support her because I wasn't allowed to talk about any of it. And then when I lost the court case, of course, I wasn't going to get custody back, so I didn't have full-time care of her. So then they said to me, if you talk to her about this after the court case, if you mention it at all to her ever again, you will lose contact altogether. We will take contact altogether away from you because you made it up. It's not true, and you're just like trying to alienate and blah blah blah.
They did.
So
they
used
your child. Sorry, pardon me, but let me jump in here real quick. They used your child as a fulcrum to suppress the truth.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so when she was about 10 years old, she said to me, Mum, why didn't you back me up? Why didn't you believe me? And I just fell apart because I did believe her. I did back her up. I kept all the files. So when she was 18, I pulled the files out and I showed her, I did back you up. I was there for you 100%. We lost the court case. That was unfair, but I backed you up 100%. So, and it did destroy her relationship with her father to some degree, like because he didn't believe her.
Yeah.
Mr. Moonan, I have another question for you because the actual case that I'm involved in now, there was an organization very early on called Human Solutions, and this guy he had cooperated with a county in New York and with a father that got summertime visitation. And I guess evidently the boy didn't come on time. So there was some talk about getting this Human Solutions involved, where they went and they got domestic traveling papers and then got into contact with the Bikers Against Abuse of Children. And essentially, we're going to pull off illegal kidnapping. Now, I say all that to ask if in your tenure, have you ever seen or witnessed anything of that sort? Because we talked about it a little bit on a previous case from California, and I just really wasn't convinced yet. And then I actually saw it happen, or the setup happening in real time, and I was like, this is a real thing. Have you seen that? And if you have, on what scale have you seen that?
I can't say that I've seen it personally. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I have had a few experiences with BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse, and they've all been they've been very positive as far as protecting children from potentially abusive situations, but not actually taking a child out of a home. And that's just not something they do.
Correct.
So that's
the protective parents group is part of what Benny's talking about. They
Correct.
hire these organisations, these groups, to go and get their kid for them, and sometimes it's genuine abuse. And a lot of times it's not genuine abuse. It's just stories that the mother's made, or one of the parents has made up, and they go and kidnap the kid. They hide the kid. They move the kid around from property to property. They're networking. They move the kids around from property to property so that they stay missing. And this is a problem, a fairly big problem here in Australia at the moment. You know, like we've just our authorities have just uncovered two really big groups that were actually putting the kids on yachts and sailing them to South Africa.
Wow.
Unreal. You know, any experience I've had with BACA in the States is they've always been adamant about knowing what the court situation is. What, you know, they're not going to take a child if there's no court order that says to take the child. They'll protect the child, but they won't take any children without having court authorization. You know, so you know any organizations that are taking children like that illegally, that's just another part of the process that needs to be stopped. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, just got to
And
be.
they are taking them illegally. If you take the
It's-
kids,
I mean-
if there is a court order that says this parent must have custody and this parent has visitation, and then the visitation parent takes the child, then yes, that's absolutely kidnapping, and it is illegal.
And as long as this goes on with family court, there's going to be more and more organizations that are going to be forming to make money off of
These
divorce.
exploitations.
Yes, that's it
all they
entirely.
Well,
You're exploiting
there's a
a loophole in the
loophole.
law to make money.
Right.
Children are
There's
a
a
revenue
loophole in the
maker.
law.
That's all they are now.
There's
Sad.
a loophole in the law where if you can prove that there was some type of abuse that you were trying to save the child from, then you won't be convicted of a kidnapping. And that loophole needs to be like tightened up and closed up, because that's the premise that these familial abductions are taking place under. That they get this lawyer. There's a couple of them in America. I can name them, but there's a couple of them in America that represent these cases specifically, where they will help the parent invent abuse specifically so they can get them out of a kidnapping charge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A good friend of mine, Dean Tong, has a website. It's called abuseexcuse.com, and it's entirely about false allegations and how to deal with them. And there's resources. It's really a great website, abuse-excuse.com. I would suggest everyone to take a look at it. Anyone who's dealing with false allegations, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it's important.
Absolutely.
I want to ask a question in hopes that I'm not just tripping. But I'm gonna.
Okay.
I feel like this is a new button, Aussie, and I'd like for you to either corroborate it or uncorroborate it. But what I have seen in the past couple of days, guys, is this: when you go to report videos, there now is a child abuse button. That has not always been there.
Yeah, I
Amen.
don't think it's always been there.
It has not always been there. Amen. So
No.
I don't know exactly what that means, guys, but I noticed it and I have not said anything
No,
about
it has.
Huh?
It has been there. It has always been there. Somebody get that bloody. Somebody jump on that hot girl spammer, please. But mods, there's a hot girls thing going on. I don't know what the hell that's about. Benny, it has been there. They've just renamed it. It looks like it's just got a different name now. Like that link has that
like
report
up front now, right? Like it hasn't been just straight.
Yeah,
child
right.
abuse.
Right. It's more up front now. I think they've just renamed it.
So you want to know what that means to me, guys? That means that there's growth. There's room for upward movement when it comes to constricting what can be shared about these cases online, guys. Now, I want to say this publicly, and this is for the Wells. Don and Candace, I thought about it last night and I prayed on it. And I thought, what is something that we can do, that we can help them empower themselves to do, to fight back against that's so apparent. And this is kind of what I want to drop out there. And if Don, if you're watching, Candace, if you're watching, I know that you guys do frequently watch. You guys have the power to create your own YouTube and go in and strike these channels that have this private information and pictures of your daughter. All you need, Wells, all you need is a copy, a photograph of the birth certificate. That is all you need. You go down under infringes my rights, you choose one, you go to privacy issue, and you push forward from there. You will be able to start knocking these channels down. And not only that, you will be in curve what type of content is out there, guys. I want to also show you that everyone agree, right? We all want to see, right? Well, check this out, guys. No one's even paid the cleanliness. I did it earlier. Look at this. Now, this gentleman, well, then someone would say, well, why would you say that, Ben? Well, because he posted in his community that has a racial expletive spray painted all over it. Right? There just is no, look at here. Right here. There just is no fucking standard for quality with these goofballs. And I'm sorry, Mr. I usually, you can ask the people, there's 80 or something. I usually have a pretty, because Mr. Moonan, I use my mouth up in the way it sounds instead of the actual message. Because if I can stray you away by saying an F word here or there, then I can hard as that. All these people right here and many more, they don't worry about what it sounds like. But this right here, this is just inappropriate. Right now, what I'm going to tell you is that Candace, this is Candace's photo, guys. Right? Now, this is not a propaganda by Candace, right? Candace has signed no YouTube terms of agreement, a service to put her child right here. But someone else did. And so that makes them the one that's responsible for the furtherance of this type of negativity right here.
Yeah.
Blank. Instead of worrying about the clout shot for the Sensible tunnel, you keep the expletives out. Amen?
Right.
Amen.
That's easy enough. Right. Right. Amen.
That's easy enough. I mean, if we call ourselves detectives, sleuths, we're seeing all of that stuff right there, right? We're seeing all of that. Like, there's just no way that's slipping by us. And so that's really the last comment I have.
Benny, when you take your screen share off, can you chuck some iron at Spivey, please?
Spivey's been had iron.
Oh,
Somebody took her away. Spivey, I had a rogue mod. It went through and unmodded a ton of people. So, Lovey, here you go. Here goes the iron right here. They did that to Cherry. They took Cherries away and somebody else's.
also, April, chuck some at April if she hasn't already.
April doesn't. Okay, April's got it. Okay, guys. So we promised Mr. Moonan that we would only take about an hour of his time. So what we've got left is the remainder, and we're looking at about a minute and a half. So I want to ask Mr. Moonan if you'd be available to potentially publicly leave your email here for anyone that's in this type of can reach out to you privately for your ex.
Absolutely. It's tjmoonan@gmail.com. Real easy. So by all means, if you have questions or need help, send me an email and I'll do the best I can. If I can't help you, I've got friends all over the country, all over the world that can help me help you. So, it's available to you at no cost. So come on over.
And that's it, guys. And you don't want to close with this. Mr. Moonan says that it comes with no cost, but I assure you that when you have the kind of compassion that this man has spent to be masterful, 10 of 10, right? 10 years or 10,000 hours contiguously makes you a master. So this man has 20 years worth of mastery. And if you are in a jam, please do not hesitate to reach out to Mr. He is really good people, and I actually I've been backing some of the stuff that he gave me previously, and everything is A1. Like this guy, he has a history of helping families, kind of change, get their issues under control. And unification, Mr. Moonan, doesn't always mean that mom and dad gets back together, right? Unification sometimes means helping families learn how to work separately but together. That's
right. Absolutely. It's all about shared parenting. Let's all go for shared parenting. It's all about. See, I want to give a huge shout out to Jolene Johnson, who's a friend of mine in Michigan. About 4 years ago, she was a recovering junkie and she'd lost her kids. And I let her borrow $20 so she could get some clothes for a job interview. And just recently, she picked up her kids down in Tennessee and brought them home, and she reunified with them. And I'll tell you what, it was probably the greatest feeling I ever had in seeing a family reunited. And it's just a beautiful thing. I've got a bunch of pictures. I'll send them to you. It's just an incredible thing. And if you can if everybody could let me help you restore your family, I love every one of them. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what I do, and I do it because I love it. There's nothing else in it for me but just the love that I have for the children. So send me an email.
One last question. Are you a believer in Christ, sir?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't do anything without his approval.
That's it. Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. Well, Mrs. Aussie, you guys, I have pinned Mr. Moonan's email in the chat. Please feel free. Mm-hmm. I ask that you use some restraint, and please do not, bog down him with answers that themselves. If you've got a serious issue, please do some self-screening before you reach out. We just ask him for a little restraint because he's already currently has a caseload of his own. Anything to rebut or retort in closing?
I'd just like to say that even us agnostics have compassion and empathy. So,
absolutely,
you are loved. Absolutely.
Hello, Monkey Mar.
I hope we can do this again, Ben.
Hello, Monkey Mar. We have a celebrity of the true crime. We have one of the other queens of the true Monkey Mar. If you aren't familiar with Monkey Mar, I'm sure you are. That's probably how you found me, was through Monkey Mar some kind of way. Maybe you watched one of her videos and then it recommended mine directly out. She is one of the queens. The whole shebang.
Jenny, you're going to have to go into the back end and be in that webcams chat. Hot girls and boys, bloody hell. Go and ban the spam in your chat.
Yeah, I see that. I've seen them pop up on quite a lot. Thank you for that, Spivey. Monkey Mar, you've got some iron over here. You'll always have some iron over here. So I do want to address one other thing. Someone here says he has bad intentions. I don't know what else. I don't know. Thank you. I don't know what all is going on in the chat here. Thank you again, Monkey Mar. Moonan, I would like to do a follow-up with you. How's next Friday? Same time, same place.
I'll be there.
And if it would be pertinent, a little bit more case next week, if that would be cool. If I could send you some of the very short, pertinent information in regards to some of the DCFS stuff there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you be so willing to take?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Send that to me as soon as possible. I get the whole weekend. So.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Well, for Mr. Moonan and for the beautiful Aussie Insider and everyone in the chat, I appreciate the classiness. Again, I want to thank all of the moderators, all of the members, and all of the.
Oops. He just booted himself.
Oh, well.
Should I finish that for him?
I guess so. I don't know. It was a pleasure
can't
meeting
hear-
you, Aussie.
It was a pleasure
There he is.
meeting you too, TJ. Benny, you pressed the wrong button, dude. Or
did it
too
right.
soon.
But Mr. Moonan, again, thank you for your time, sir. We will be talking over the weekend, and I'll send you the pertinent. Miss Aussie, I will speak with you directly after this if you have time.
Yes.
Remember, everybody,
Yes, I have time.
the absence of evidence
Mhm.
is not the evidence of absence. Be good to yourself and be good at it. Thank you.